It's time, Bagabug. Time to overthrow the pretender. Baga, the Alchemist, is gone. It's time to claim the throne. Once and for all. Ambush him when he's at his weakest.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa!
Take one of FAsterisks, beloved followers hostage. Start by gathering your chosen orcs. The betrayed is strong, and weak-minded will be easily swayed.
Bagabug and the Betrayed have started a rebellion. They attacked me when I was at my weakest, when I was starting a stream. These are two of the strongest orcs that I've ever met. For those of you who don't know Bagabug, he's been my overlord since the first age of my channel. Baga came first, and Bagabug joined shortly after. This orc was so powerful that even when Baga was at the height of his powers, he was still the overlord, instead of Baga the Alchemist. Thinking about fighting this foe sends shivers down my spine. There's a reason I've not experimented with trying to bring back different versions of Bagabug. He's just that goddamn hard to kill. And he's enlisted the help of one of the original members of Baga's bandits, the Betrayed. The Betrayed has super orc-like strength, as well as being super durable, and completely crazy. With the combined might of these two powerful orcs, they easily took me by surprise and killed me while I was wearing my weak armor.
Once he's dead, attack the fort. He'll be too weak to defend it.
I came back from the dead to find my fort under siege. Bagabug had timed his attack well. I'd be too weak to fend off these attackers. It was up to my orcs to defend the fortress. But Bagabug was one step ahead again. He'd already turned the majority of my guards against me. Ever since the death of Baga the Alchemist, morale has been down, and Bagabug utilised that. The majority of my captains and war chiefs had already fled. Enraged by this, I summoned the Manhunter orc. He was the one who'd been taken captive by the Betrayed and Bagabug. At this time, we need to be strong. Weakness cannot be tolerated amongst my ranks. Bagabug's forces, led by the Life Drinker, charged in, but they would crash like waves against the rocks that are my frontline defense. Hork the Judge, second only to Bagabug in strength. Enraged by almost everything, the orcs would have a hard time getting past him, and he was not alone. Backed up by Snafu, one of the original Baga's bandits, brought back to life by Baga, and one of Bagabug's own bodyguards, the Devourer. The first group of orcs made it over the wall utilising their caragors. Soon after that, the perimeter was broken. In an act of sheer will, the Devourer took out the Olog who was leading the raid, the Life Drinker, but cut off the head of the Hydra, and two more grew back. The next wave brought many strong orcs, Tars the Vicious, Kuga the Shredder. FAsterisks disagrees. All it did was singe his mind.
We are soon! Don't you boys dare muck it up now!
It became clear to FAsterisks that Bagabug had gone all out here. Just look at the sheer number of orcs he'd sent. The next point was soon taken.
This battle's all overboard the screaming, huh?
Rash the Gut Ripper appeared, a particularly violent orc, known for ripping the guts from his enemy while they're still alive. By this point in the raid, Talion had regained some of his strength. He was able to mount a stand at the 5th point, where he came face to face with the assassin.
You've done well with the Horde, but a certain party thought it was time to call in a specialist. That would be me.
Pull out all your shiny weapons. Go ahead. I'll smash them all to pieces.
That's enough anticipation! Get him!
Combat ensued against 4 high-level orcs while more ran in from the sides. Talion was overwhelmed, but he wouldn't back down. That's not what Bagger would have wanted. Plus, Talion has a threshing sword. A sword able to cause explosions when charged up. Perfect when taking on multiple captains at once. Perfect for this exact situation. While Talion kept fighting inside the walls, Grom kept the fight going outside, as he laid the Prowler to rest. Agonizing pain on his face. Across the map, infighting was going on, with Luga taking out Tars the Vicious. But this is what you'd expect from a horde of orcs. Just then, the inner wall was breached, and the Fearful entered, walking away from the wall for some reason, because he's really cool and he's leaving. He's going for some tea. I don't know what he's doing.
It's all over, lads. Just have to mop up now.
Anyway, Talion kept fighting inside the inner gates, with the Literate One and Grom keeping some of the Ologs at bay. Talion thought it time to summon in his frog blood warrior. A warrior with poisonous frog blood running through his veins. More orcs assaulted this point.
You think you're tough? You know nothing of tough. But I will show you. You know your problem? Too many arms! I'm gonna fix it right now!
The numbers are almost becoming overwhelming at this point for Talion. But Talion isn't a quitter. He utilized his threshing sword and his fire elven light attack, cleansing the orcs. The surgeon, ironically being reduced to individual parts. But the danger wasn't over yet. Talion narrowly avoiding some throwing axes. But this only spurred Talion on, sending the Kingslayer sliding across the floor. The Shredder, terrified, trying to hide in the snow. Orcs were dropping left, right and center. Talion was starting to build up confidence. Thunderhead had had enough of Talion's antics.
Now I have to fight you! As if I didn't already have enough to do during this siege!
He issued another siege on the wall, bringing in more orcs.
Don't pat yourselves on the back yet! We still have the rest of the fort to take, so get to it!
Maku the Taskmaster, accompanied by various different Olog captains. Talion scrambled to defend the last point, but the orcs were strong and many in number. Powerful Ologs had also joined the fight.
I'm gonna rip out your spine! It'll be a lot of work, so your screams better make it worth the effort!
Better not try running away, or do not fancy a run. Oh, let's not drag this out.
But Talion wasn't threatened. Sinking 10 arrows into the great skull, he finally succumbed. But the Great was just a decoy. In the milliseconds it had taken Talion to sink that last arrow, the recently shamed Manhunter Orc stuck his blade into Talion's chest, causing him to collapse. He finished off Talion swiftly, Did the Manhunter orc turn on Talion after he was shamed? Or was he always a spy for Bagabug? With this death, Bagabug assumed control of the fortress. Along with Runny Bowels, a particularly disgusting orc, Buug the Bloodhound, a very devious orc, Manhunter, the betrayed necromancer, Grisha the Grog Burner, burned when experimenting with new variants of grog, Muku the Taskmaster, the tactician for the foot soldiers, and finally Hoshgris, the master assassin. Talion has lost everything. He's lost Bagga the Alchemist, he's lost Bagabug, and now he's lost his fort. Who would answer the call and help him fight against Bagabug? Who would be crazy enough to do that? I headed to a new region in search of the Abandoned. He was currently laying siege to the Painseeker fort for killing Bagga. He had summoned Baggas from across the multiverse. It would take a lot to pry him away from this revenge mission. I set off in search of him. Eventually, as I neared towards this archway, I could sense his presence.
No one gets through here without my say-so! And I don't intend on saying so.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa.
There he was, leading a force against one of the Painseeker empathizers, the Abandoned, a truly skillful warrior, made even more dangerous by his Red Guard, an elite troop of orcs he handpicks and trains for years. They would die for him. But this wasn't all the Abandoned came with. He also came with the full power of two Baggas from the multiverse, Bagga the Betrayed and Bagga the Undead. Both variants of Bagga, both with their own horrifying backstories. I then noticed a particularly creepy shrine. Was this a sign of the bad things that were to come? Is this what would be done to Talion? The Abandoned begun his charge with his elite Red Guard. The Baggas stayed back for now. FAsterisks could sense something evil.
Man swine! Staking out your enemies, yeah, that's smart. Leaving yourself vulnerable to ambush? Less so.
Maku the Biter. One of my slave experiments gone wrong. I was experimenting with my poison armor. When orcs hit me, there's a massive chance they'll become poisoned. I was experimenting to see that if a grunt/slave killed me while they were poisoned because of my armor, would they then be turned into a poisoned captain? As you can see, many orcs died during this experiment. One even died while I was downed. He couldn't muster up the final strength. A combination of the poison and an arrow to the ass. It was then Maku ran in, an oddly determined slave. The poison didn't seem to bother him. Even though he was being sick, he fought through the pain. A lesser orc would have died and succumbed to the poison, but not Maku. He fought through the pain, through the adversity. He clearly has a massive drive. I should have stopped the experiment right there and then when I realised how strong he was.
Recognized as a true warrior.
What was created was a bitey, horrible monster of an orc. But I wasn't here for him. I was here for the Abandoned, who had come face to face with one of the Painseeker empathizers. Maki tried to hit me, but I was focused. I dashed around to try and get the Abandoned's attention, but I only succeeded in getting the attention of another orc.
So we have to defend ourselves against his talk as well? What next?
Crimp the Bold, a traitor to the orcs, an empathizer of the painless. The Abandoned was right to try and kill him. Just look at this chaos he started. His red soldiers setting ablaze to the enemy's troops. But would he listen to me if I helped him in this fight? All I'd achieved so far was summoning in another crazy orc to help out Crimp. I needed to get rid of the Bold. But before I could even help, the Abandoned was taking things into his own hands. He tackled Crimp, and while he was on the floor, he planted a bomb directly into his mouth. Crimp was reduced to meat, reduced to appendages flying through the air. I could see that the Abandoned's strength had not diminished. It was then that the two baggers started to swarm Maku. Maki was fighting for his life, but there was no way he'd survive against two very strong baggers from different universes. His only chance was using fire. The undead are naturally terrified of flame, so this bagger fled. I decided to intervene and take out Maku myself. The fire that he'd used on the undead bagger had gotten out of control. I'd weakened him enough, and I thought the fight was over, until... Just when I thought Maki was going to have a burst of strength and kill me, the Abandoned snuck up behind him and dealt him the finishing blow. He slashed the biter, propelling his body into the wall at insane speeds. I was amazed at the strength that the Abandoned clearly still had. With the fight finished, I headed over to speak to the Abandoned.
Alive! The shame of defeat clings to you, Turk. And I don't want that stench on me. Nothing personal.
Until the Abandoned was betrayed by one of his own men, a Bagga from the Machine universe. He had the psychotic cunning of Bagga, with a body reinforced with steel. With the combined powers of Bagga the Betrayed and the Abandoned, we were able to take out the Machine very easily. Or at least that's what I thought, with the Machine immediately getting enraged. The Baggas do not take kindly to seeing other variants of themselves betray the cause. This led Bagga the Betrayed to swiftly dispense Bagga justice, and hit him with the Bagga finisher move. From there it was only a matter of time. I decided not to intervene in this fight, as I knew it was the Abandoned and Bagga who needed to get their revenge on this traitor. And right when the Machine was going to strike me, Bagga finished him off. With the fight finished, I was finally able to speak to the Abandoned. After telling him about the grievous betrayal of Bagabug, he agreed to take part in this war. After recruiting the Abandoned, I headed out to recruit another member of the team. This member was retired and didn't want anything to do with wars anymore. I decided to surprise him at his retirement home. But here, when he knew I was there, the Puppet Master, one of Bagga's original bandits. As soon as I got to speaking about what was going on, Bagabug turned up below the house. This was a golden opportunity to finally end this rebellion. I was going to assassinate Bagabug right here, right now.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa! Whoa, whoa!
But there was no hope. Bagabug was just too strong. I hadn't had time to build up my forces and train for him yet. He plunged his cursed daggers into me and raised me above his head. His eyes were filled with hate. I do not know what happened to the Puppet Master after this. I can only assume that Bagabug took him.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa, whoa!
By the time I resurrected myself, Bagabug and the Puppet Master were gone. What horrors had befallen the Puppet Master? And would I actually be able to build up an army strong enough to take out Bagabug and reclaim my fortress? Before embarking on this quest, Talion visited the tomb of Calbrimborn. There he contemplated what he should do, and he foresaw his victory. The key to this victory is the Abandoned. Talion was able to recruit the Abandoned thanks to two Bagga the Alchemist variants that had entered his reality. After the fight, Talion was able to convince the Abandoned to join his cause, and become his war chief to lead his forces in retaking the fort from Bagabug. But we still needed 5 others. Talion sought out a particular legend in the desert region, a very dangerous wasteland, roamed by the foulest orcs, fire-breathing drakes, a desolate land. Talion travelled for days in search of this legend. This one orc he knew would make a difference in the fight. An orc that other orcs could rally behind. And a close personal friend of the Abandoned. It was here at this ambush that Talion would find this orc.
Do you know what we're guarding? No! That's because you don't need to know. Just guard it!
The original painted orc. Clinically insane. I've never noticed he has a skull on his, clinically insane. One of Baga's most loyal bandits. After the death of Baga, he sought to explore the world. A gross and violent orc, but that wouldn't bother the painted. Did I mention he's clinically insane? The painted charged in. The gut slurper has no idea what's about to hit him. To show my support, I jump in. I'd have to fight alongside the painted to show him that I'm still strong. You can see the painted still has his sorcery powers.
You maggot! I will never tire of seeing you die.
Together with the painted, we made short work of the gut slurper. The painted takes great pride in his poison. He loves nothing more than to maniacally laugh while an orc suffers, convulsing with the many different poisons running through their veins, shutting off valves to their heart, until they eventually succumb. The painted had had his fun. It was time to chat. I told the painted about Bagabug and the rebellion. He was hesitant to join until he heard that the Abandoned had already signed on. He agreed to fight, as long as he'd be my number 2. Second, of course, to the Abandoned. I left the desert for Sirgost. This icy cold map breeds strong orcs. And that's exactly what I've come here for. This beast of an Olog. Cast out as a child, he was made to grow up with the Caragors, and as a result became an absolute savage with immense strength. He's exactly what we need to help take down this rebellion. The beast recognizes strength, so he's loyal to me as long as I have it. Moments after the beast left, I was ambushed. I should have known this would happen being so close to the fort that Bagabug had taken. It was the unkillable.
That's the last time I let you hit me with that thing! I'm not that forgiving, and I'm not that stupid!
One of the orcs that ran during the initial rebellion. He turned to Bagabug's side out of fear. And now he'd been sent to assassinate me. Since the rebellion, Bagabug had put a hit out against me. There was a huge reward on my head. Bagabug knows these orcs can't kill me permanently, but they can at least slow me down. The unkillable, though, has no chance. He's weak to frost, which makes him an easy target for me. That's right, unkillable. Run back to Bagabug. Tell him I'm coming for him. You can tell him all about this crazy army we're building. There's nothing Bagabug can do to stop me. At this moment, Talion started having flashbacks about what had happened. He was worried. Worried about what Bagabug had done to the puppet master, one of the original Baga's bandits. What could he have done to him to make him turn against FAsterisks? After this fight, I was pissed. I was immediately resurrected. I then came across this completely random enemy captain, one of Bagabug's scouts. This must have been the orc that had given away my position. This orc must have told Bagabug exactly where the puppet master's house was. Mog the Deathless. I may have still been weak after my resurrection, but I jumped straight in. I needed to burn off some steam. This Caragor was not going to get in my way. I had to kill an orc right now. Deathless threw Caragors at me over and over again. He was panicking. He knew that I was out for blood.
Hunting you wasn't much of a challenge. Let's see if slaying you is better sport.
He talked about hunting me as if I was the prey. I responded by sinking as many arrows as I could into his skull. It didn't take long for him to crumble. Then he was given the most insulting death known to an orc, thrown from a small ledge. In this lush green region, I was in search of more legendary orcs to join my army. Limpleg, Baga the Alchemist's oldest friend. Limpleg was around whenever Baga had his initial rise to power. If anyone knew the ins and outs of the Sirgost fort, it was Limpleg. He said if I helped him hunt down a coward orc that he'd join the army. It wasn't long until we found this orc.
Loot bag! All your weapons, all your kit. So many pretty things you brought for me.
Quick explosion of the fireplace, he's not gonna know what's hit him. Look at that, he's gone absolutely flying. Look at him go. Limpleg witnessed the power of Talion and FAsterisks. As long as I destroyed this orc, he'd join our crusade. The pinch came to his senses and decided to run. I pinned his foot and waited for Limpleg to deal the final blow. After that, Limpleg agreed to join the army. There was one more orc I needed to recruit in this area, but an evil feeling came over me. I was not alone. The puppet master ambushed me, tackled me, punched me, and then killed me there on the mountaintop.
Thought you could push me around, did you? I'm an Uruk, not a whipping boy!
Clearly his mind has been twisted by Bagabug. What did Bagabug say to him? What could he have possibly done to make him turn on me like this? I respawned in the local area, significantly weakened. The Olog I was looking for was near.
Right, lads. Time for a little bit of darkness and a whole lot of ghoul blood.
The frog-blooded Olog, training by taking on a nest of ghouls. This Olog would make a fine addition to the army, with the relative strength of a frog, and the poison to back it up.
Especially that matron's.
He'd conduct trials like this weekly just to make sure his poison was of the highest standard. These ghouls didn't stand a chance, but I had to get down there to prove my worth. I had to convince him to go to war against one of the strongest orcs. My elven light would make quick work of these ghouls. The rest would fall to my sword. Frogblood was overcome with poison. I'd proven my strength to him, so now it was time to ask for his hand in this war. Would the Frogbloods join? Bagabug does get enraged by poison, but he's also weak to it, the only element that actually hurts him. Thankfully, he agreed to join. After recruiting the legendary Frogblood Olog, I headed back to the desert area. Every team needs a wild card, and I had the perfect one in mind. Even though he's completely crazy, he should join up. Years ago, he actually had an encounter with Bagabug. Bagabug was wrangling Caragors, and then he was ambushed by 3 orcs that thought they could take him out.
Whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa.
To attack Bagabug like this is absolutely crazy.
A kettle! In the kettle! 2 mice! Squeaky, squeaky!
This is exactly what Luga is. Crazy. Crazy to the bone. I was there that day years ago when he attacked Bagabug. 3 of them charged in. But they underestimated just how crazy Bagabug is. and how easily he becomes enraged. The fight did not go well, but Luga survived. Even though he's crazy, he has cunning, and he's very, very sneaky. I was tracking one of the disgraced judges that ran whenever Bagabug's forces
Don't be
attacked.
sticking your arm near them. I've been starving them for days.
I knew Luga would be crazy enough to attack him. I was right. He showed up, a truly crazy orc to attack a judge, but he wasn't alone. He brought along 2 resurrected legendary orcs, Mug the Bitter, and one of the undead Baga variants.
Oink, said the willow tree. Oink, oink.
This reminded me of the time he attacked Bagabug with 2 orcs. But this time was different. Luga was stronger, Luga was smarter, Luga was crazier. He had also been studying in the mystic arts, so he fought himself a match for a judge. Also, I would be intervening. This was my judge after all, and I should be the one to bring him to justice. He fled from combat right when Bagabug was attacking, right when my fort was at my weakest. You can see that Mug the Bitter still has some fight left in him, and the Baga. Mug was one of Baga's original bandits, but he sadly fell to disease. But since he was one of Baga's favourites, Baga brought him back to life.
Very much doubt you'll survive this. But if you do, maybe this time I'll recruit you.
The judge was toying with me. He was confident, even though Mug was on an absolute rampage. Baga as well. Between the pair of them, they could easily defeat this judge. Their years of experience. Baga attacked right when the judge was running for me, and Mug went in using his enraged abilities. You can see this only spurred on the judge, but that wouldn't matter. Because of this, Luga actually got bored and ran off chasing some orcs. He was crazy, so it was going to take a lot for me to get his attention. He's a sucker for a chase, and he knew that Mug the Bitter and Baga the Alchemist would take care of the judge easily enough. They used their years of experience to take out the judge when he was attacking Talion, Baga the Alchemist walking right up behind him and plunging his axe directly into his spine. The judge fell, disgraced, dishonoured. Another orc that fled the battle had finally been brought to justice. With Luga having had run off, I had to find him again, but it didn't take long. I summoned my trusty elemental fire Grog, and proceeded to scout the desert area in search of strong orcs. Luga has always been attracted to fighting strong orcs, so they'd be the best place to start. I also followed a trail of dead orcs and crazy mutterings. Eventually, I came to Luga.
Hungry pigs! There's the maggot! Snatch him! A kettle! In the kettle! Too moist! Squeaky, squeaky!
He was leading this black hark orc directly into a trap. Many orcs underestimate Luga because of his crazy mutterings. Blackheart would surely fall for the trap. But I had to intervene. I couldn't let these two fight. I had to get Luga's attention. I couldn't let him run off again.
I am your doom! This requires a closer examination of your beautiful corpse!
This encounter had me questioning why every single orc seems to think that my corpse is beautiful. Anyway, this is no time for thinking. Luga got one strike off on Blackheart, a devastating strike that enraged. Luga then took him down and punched him in the back of the head repeatedly. He was toying with him until he decided to take his head. With Blackheart dead, I finally got to speak to Luga. I explained to him as best I could what Bagabug had done to me. Because of Luga's past with Bagabug, he agreed to take part in this fight. I then headed back to a much nicer, lush, green part of Middle-earth. I'd heard rumours amongst my ranks that there was about to be a big fight that was going to take place. Two very powerful orcs were in the area. Before I can get to that, I was ambushed.
I know we got a turncoat, and the best way to find him is to string up the corpse of his boss. And look, his boss is right here.
Bagabug had sent his reckless assassins after me. Many orcs had tried, thanks to the bounty on my head. This orc was truly reckless to try and come after me single-handedly. He did not comprehend the sheer power of my threshing sword. That, combined with my fire elven light, I made quick work of any grunts he brought with him. There it was just me and him left, one-on-one. He became enraged after I used some of my undead necromancy powers, but he was weak. I wasn't going to toy with him any longer. I was going to sink arrow after arrow into his head until he fell. That is the look of regret. He fell far into the ocean. I'm sure we won't see the reckless orc again. After dealing with that bounty hunter, I followed different murmurings of orcs until I came across the fight. Everyone was talking about it, so it was easy to find. The Abandoned had taken it upon himself to attack the Betrayed. The Betrayed being Bagga's right-hand man whenever he betrayed me. He was there that day, on top of that snowy mountain, when Bagabug had taken my manhunter orc hostage. He said some strong words to me there. Words I'll never forget. And now the Abandoned was going to kill him. What they said to each other chilled me to my bone.
Woo, woo, woo! Woo! Woo!
Such wordsmiths, both of them trading vocal blows, but all they'd succeeded in is making each other enraged. I was going to let these two fight it out one-on-one, but then I was noticed. The Betrayed's known me for a very long time, so he has a keen sense of when I'm around, which is why he's completely immune to my stealth, the same as Bagabug. So I had no chance but to help. The Betrayed had brought many orcs with him, and he was also very formidable. I do not think the Betrayed fully knew about my threshing sword, so I decided to introduce him to it. It was very effective against him. Right when I was going to work, the Abandoned called in his elite guard. These were orcs he'd hand-picked and trained with for years. They salivated at the challenge of the Betrayed. They swarmed him. But the Betrayed was strong. The odds were stacked against him, but he was fighting back and holding his own. Even with the full power of the Abandoned and his elite guard, the Betrayed was able to rally, until the Abandoned lost it. He hoisted him above his head and slammed him into the ground. But then...
Who's hunting who? Makes no odds to me.
Another one of Bagabug's mercenaries arrived. I had to deal with him quickly, before the Betrayed could regain any more composure. I made a miscalculation and they both became enraged. The fight was back on. While the Betrayed was weak, I plunged my sword into his chest. I'd done it just as the Abandoned collapsed with exhaustion. This fight was about to be over. But the Betrayed had other plans. I quickly got the Abandoned back on his feet. I knew I had to kill this mercenary. He was getting in the way. Only then could we focus all of our energy on the Betrayed. The mercenary became weak, and I was able to slot an arrow directly through his head. This enraged the Betrayed, who was standing beside him right when it happened. But there was nothing he could do. The Abandoned called in more of his elite guards. They cornered the Betrayed and laid into him. A mixture of ruthless aggression and firebombs rained down on the Betrayed. I then moved in to finish the job. He betrayed me, and it's up to me to exact my revenge. I quickly countered his shield and plunged my sword directly into his neck. Scoff the Betrayed was finally dead. Before we had time to speak, a rampaging Olog ran into the fight. After the money on my head, no doubt. He summoned in the explosive orcs, which laid fire on everything. An idiotic move, as he was not immune to fire.
All these other orcs will have to form a queue behind this big fella.
The limp leg couldn't even do his own speaking. I immediately exploded the head of that annoying talking orc. I charged out my thrashing sword and unleashed a devastating blast right when he was running towards me. The shock waves rippled all across Middle-earth. After that, I could finally speak to the Abandoned. I commanded him to gather his troops in Seargost. It was time to face Bagabug. But before we could attack, I had to head to the desert region. I'd received word from the Painted that he needed my assistance. We were to meet atop this tower to discuss. But I was attacked by a Stormbringer orc. Bagabug had begun sending his stronger Stormbringer orcs. Orcs much like him. Orcs with the power to bring storms. Stronger and easily enraged. We commenced in an epic fight atop the tower, but this Stormbringer was nowhere near as powerful as Bagabug, and he soon fell. What did Bagabug think this could achieve? Surely he knew this orc couldn't kill me. He must have just been trying to slow me down. After dealing with that assassin, I headed back to Seargost. There was a pestilent Olog guy to deal with before commencing the raid.
It's also simple. It's also very simple.
Massey the Massive had come back to life. Thunderhead had caught wind of this and was leading the assault on Massey. Such unsanctioned resurrections had also drawn the attention of two Bagabug the Alchemists. They were acting as agents of the multiverse, and Massey was not supposed to be alive. Massey was an agent of chaos, and could destroy the fabric of time by being left alone.
You want some?
But just then we were ambushed.
Nice to see old friends, especially when you get the drop on them.
The Fearful was another Olog that Bagabug had resurrected.
You want some? You think that was the first time I've been burned in battle? Please.
But this wouldn't be enough to stop us. Thunderhead charged at Massey, while the two Bagas stayed behind to take on the Fearful Olog. I also decided to go after Massey. I had to know how he came back to life, and what he intended on doing. Could he have come back stronger? It doesn't seem like that. While Massey was getting terrified of my executions, the Baggers were introducing the Fearful to their fire weapons. These Baggers were not messing around, and they quickly burned the Fearful. After the Fearful fell, Massey ran. I chased after him. I had to make sure he wouldn't be a threat. I had to make sure he wouldn't intervene in my revenge. I shamed him down. I had to keep his mind simple.
It's simple. So simple.
After travelling for days through the forests, through the wilderness, through Middle-earth, to gather my Avengers, and right before I attack Bagabug's fort, sorry, I should say, my fort that he's currently just renting out, I headed here to deal with an old familiar friend. This orc had tracked me here to take me out, but I was the one who was tracking him. By releasing his Caragors, I could lure him out into the open. And finally, he took my bait.
Somebody must have a death wish!
The Puppet Master, one of Bagga's original bandits. While I was originally recruiting him, we were attacked by Bagabug, and Bagabug used his words to turn him against me. The Puppet Master now hates me.
Gone through so much fuss to draw out me and my boys! Face us! And find out what we do to anyone who provokes us!
There he was, my target. Could I convince him to join my side again? Or was he just too far gone?
Now you die!
He yells obey at me to mock me. This is usually one of the things that Talion will say whenever he's dominating an orc. So by him shouting obey at me, I can tell that he's clearly sick of me being in charge. Maybe Bagabug didn't actually say very much to him. Maybe deep down he always hated me being in charge of him.
I'm going to kill you for what you did. The only question is how painful your death will be.
Stop teasing him and start stabbing him.
He's brought his creepy serpent bodyguard with him. As you can tell, he's an absolute psychopath. But look at this. Shooting the fire barrel sends him completely flying across the map, catching him off guard. I take advantage of the explosion to get in there and stab him when he's on the ground. The serpent's running in, trying to save his master's life. Oh, he gets a quick slice on me there. I need to be careful here, these are very strong orcs. The puppet master absolutely hates me, and the serpent is just completely crazy. To turn the odds back in my favour, I end up summoning my bodyguard, the frog-blooded Olog. I also like to refer to him as the Hulk. But just when I do that, it attracts another random captain over here. So right when I even things up, another captain runs over. But that's not going to stop me. I use my explosive attack here to create some distance, and then I go on with the Elven Light. All of the orcs here do not like fire at all. They are not fireproof. Oh, they're really not having a good time here. Look at them just running around like little mad things. Here we go, explosive attack again. The Hulk's getting in there using his old poison. The Torturer has had enough. He's taken off. And that just enrages the Puppet Master as he slashes me in the back. He ends up downing me because of his enraged attacks. He goes in for the kill, but I'm able to counter it, thankfully. I show him my acrobatics and I use the old explosive attack here to clear some room because there was a lot of grunts there piling up. The Hulk in the corner has been dazed. He's just fighting the serpent. Going for another fire elven light attack here because these lads do not like it. Although it seems like the serpent was able to hide behind his massive shield. This fight is just complete chaos. Thankfully the Torturer has ran away, so the odds are back in my favour. And then I find out the Puppet Master has a fear of pinning. That's the weakness that I can exploit. I wait till he's calmed down, he's not enraged anymore, so that I can dominate him. It was at this moment when I try and convince him that Bagabug's words were a lie. But he just doesn't listen, and I have to shame him. Will I be able to break his iron will? With the Puppet Master dealt with, I turn my attention to the serpent. This is really one orc that I don't want to see again, so I'm going to have to kill him right here, right now. I take advantage of the chaos to stab him in the gut, but it barely even slows him down. The chaos attracts another random orc captain. Doing this in an enemy fort was not a good idea. I ignore this random captain, and proceed to pummel the serpent with the help of the Hulk. But this captain was cunning. He knew I was most vulnerable whenever I was regaining my health, and that's when he chose to attack me. The Hulk then jumped in to try and save me. But he didn't buy me enough time. This orc was relentless. He punched me in the face over and over again before killing me.
Killing you is so satisfying! I wish we'd met sooner.
But this death didn't matter. I quickly respawned and hunted down the Puppet Master. He was the main target. I was either going to recruit him, or I was going to shame him over and over again until he was willing to rejoin my army. I couldn't let Bagabug win. I had to take this orc. And there he was. Will he join my army before he becomes crazy? This fireball hits us right when we're talking and it doesn't even bother him.
Looks like you win our bet. The Tark is back. Let's see how long he lasts this time.
Just completely unfazed by the fire, he still screams obey at me. He clearly has no respect. I'm going to have to teach him a lesson here. Absolute chaos as we kick off. There's a Drake hitting us with fireballs. There's ghouls here. He's already been lit on fire and he's poisoned. Things are not going well for the Puppet Master. He's got no bodyguards this time. We're not inside an enemy fort. No captains are going to come and save him. He's all mine and I'm going to make this one hurt. I eventually lure him up to the top of the tower. I figure we can have our epic duel right up there, and he headbutts me immediately as soon as I get him up here. But luckily he's not frostproof, so I'm smashing him here. Look at that, he is going down. He is going to have no part to play in this rebellion. I'm going to remove this chess piece from Bagabug's board. Another ice smash. He's almost ready to be recruited or shamed again, depending on if he's still got iron will. There we go, I hit him with the old throwing darts. He's ready. He's gonna get dominated. But I can sense that his will is just too strong. He is not gonna join my side.
My will is strong.
He's clearly too far gone. He's gonna have to be shamed again. After shaming him, I can sense that he hasn't gotten far, so I jump down from the tower. And there he is, right there, ready to be dominated again.
Obey! If I didn't know better, I'd say I just killed you. But you all look the same to me.
It's amazing to see that he's still sane. He hasn't gone crazy yet from all these shamings. Lesser orcs would definitely have already fallen into madness. I explode this barrel, causing as much chaos as possible. He goes flying. I use this to my advantage to stab him on the floor while he's still engulfed in flames. One explosive chain later and he is ready to be dominated. This just absolutely cuts through his defenses. Have we broken his iron will? Will he join the Avengers and turn on Bagabug?
You fight. You cannot break my will!
His will not be broken. He refuses to join the army. He refuses to turn on Bagabug. Therefore, he must be shamed and outcast. He's either going to join me, or he's going to go crazy. I hunt him down again, on the back of my elemental grog. The poison grog is truly a horrible sight to behold, striking fear into most orcs that behold it. I track the Puppet Master down to his cliffside camp. He's actually in pretty good spirits, considering he's been shamed 3 times now. I use the elemental grog to my advantage, peppering these orcs in poison spray. But this only spurs on the Puppet Master as he gets enraged. I then go full evil Anakin, killing the Padawans here, and I kill my own grog. I couldn't afford to let my grog kill the Puppet Master, who's currently weak. He's ready to be dominated. Will he join my army? Will he finally see the light? Or will he go crazy?
You serve me now.
Traitor!
He says he's not a traitor. He needs to be shamed. And in this final shaming, the Puppet Master finally loses his mind. He will not be joining my army. Instead, he's banished. With the wild card Puppet Master finally dealt with, Talion could focus on taking back his fort from Bagabug with his army of Avengers. I travelled to Sirgos to gather my forces to attack Bagabug's fort. My Avengers were ready. Would we survive? Would we take the fort? Here were the Avengers I'd gathered. Norsko the Abandoned, leading the force. He is one of my most legendary orcs. Speaking of legendary, we have the Painted Orc. A skilled fighter, and absolutely crazy. But not as crazy as this next orc. Luga the Crazy. Every army needs a wild card, and Lug is my wild card. He may be crazy, but he's amazing in a fight. Like this Olog here. Frog blood, the muscle of the operation. Hulk-like strength combined with deadly poison. But this all means nothing about the strategist that is Limpleg, one of Baga's oldest friends. And he'd be joined by the final member, the Beast. Strength combined with angry beastal rage. My army was ready, and we'd be going up against Bagabug's elite generals. Grisha the Grog Burner, completely numb to pain, and an epic scrappy fighter. The Taskmaster, Bagabug's strategist, and he'd be joined by the Manhunter. Bagabug took him hostage whenever he rebelled against me. After I shunned him out for being weak, he killed me, and now he's a key member of Bagabug's fort, along with the Assassin. I don't think much more needs to be said about the Assassin, and their forces are all backed up by Runny Bowels, a messy, savage, shield-bearing orc. Along with him, their forces have Puug, Bloodhound, relentless in his attacks. How would my Avengers fare against this fort of savages?
Woo woo woo! Woo woo! Woo!
Oh, Bagabug's words cut me to my core. I don't know if I can continue making this video. He's savage with his words. I'll try to muster up the confidence and the strength to continue.
Woo woo! Woo! Woo woo! Woo woo! Woo woo! 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 Woo woo! Woo!
My forces charge in, led by the Abandoned. Look at him. Look at that strength. Good to see the synchronized orcs made it. My forces run in and start throwing spears at the door. Oh, there we go. Never mind. We're climbing it. We're climbing it. We're getting over the wall. Look at the Painted and the Abandoned go. Leading by example. Why are we throwing spears at the door? I come face to face with the first orc captain, the Grog Burner. I destroy his Caragor as well as the head of a random grunt. I shoot this barrel to try and help the grunts outside, throwing spears at the massive iron gate. Just then, the Painted and the Abandoned run in. The Orc Avengers have successfully infiltrated the fort.
Last time we faced each other, we took your fort and I got a promotion.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm so glad he could get a promotion. But hey, I've got a surprise for you. The Abandoned's here. Look at him.
I can't wait to see what happens this time.
Isn't he scary? He's gonna kill you. Don't know if the promotion was worth it, mate, to be honest. Is it just you here? Against all of us? Just you? Bagabug put you at the front line. Bagabug does not like you, mate. He basically sacrificed you. It is not gonna go well for you. Look at that. Look at the crazies here. Do you know how crazy he is? Just slightly more crazy than the Painted. Oh man, you should really run. You really shouldn't be here. I'm gonna take this point just so you have a fighting chance, mate. At the next point, we're met with the Assassin. But honestly, he's gonna be no match for the Avengers. He's also cannon fodder. Bagabug's put him up front just to slow us down. But we're gonna make quick work of this point. With the second point taken, I move on to the third point and I find Mog the Thief on the floor being destroyed by the Beastolog. I also come across my nemesis, the Manhunter. The orc that was taken hostage by Bagabug, I then cast out and shamed, and then he killed me whenever Bagabug was taking the fort. There's no way I'm letting him survive this raid. Clearly the rage from Manhunter killing me was catching up. After taking this point, the Avengers headed deeper into the fort. I quickly took out the inner catapults. While I was doing this, the Avengers were fighting on the ground. All of the orcs from the previous points had gathered up together. How would my Avengers fare? Oh, the Assassin has just been killed by the Manhunter. A bit of friendly fire. The Manhunter, my goodness. Still a traitor, I see. Plunging his throwing knives directly into the Assassin, my goodness. The Assassin clearly getting in the way of the beast. And then we have Luga showing us what a savage he is, killing the Taskmaster. I had to get down there to join the fight. The Hulk was rampaging, going to town killing all the grunts. The Manhunter was also having a terrible time being caught on fire. I forgot just how crazy he had gone from me shaming him. Maybe in this moment I felt bad for him. But those thoughts quickly passed. Across the way, Mog the Thief died from being doomed. I had to do some damage control because all of this killing had really taken its toll on my Avengers. But not the Hulk, as you can see him still rampaging around. Along with the orc who was defending the first point, the Grog Burner, who had become enraged by what was going on. 2 of my Avengers were down at this point. I had to work quickly to get them up. And then Luga the Crazy took out the Manhunter, getting revenge for me. Luga was on a roll and was showing us his true strength. It doesn't matter how crazy he is when he's killing orcs that easily. The Abandoned, clearly inspired by how Luga was fighting, picked up the Grog Burner and put him above his head. He was about to give him the old Alabama slam, which I then interrupted by taking the point. I used this break in the chaos to get up the Hulk and the Beast. With all my orcs running into the inner gate, I could then focus on the Grog Burner. With him frosted up, I could then go in for the combo and smash him into a million pieces. Goodbye, Grog Burner. You deserved a better master. But as soon as I killed one of Bagabug's powerful captains, another one appeared, and this was one of my own, the Unkillable. He was once Bagabug's personal bodyguard, whenever Bagabug was the overlord of my fort. Now he had chose to stay with Bagabug and betray me. I scaled the walls and jumped into the final 2 points. My Avengers had already put on a massive effort, so I was able to take the point immediately. Moving on to the final point, and we come across Runny Bowels defending it, but he's not alone. He's also there with Poog Bloodhound and an Olog you may recognise. Massey the Bloody Massive, of course Massey the Massive has joined Bagabug in my rebellion.
Don't you see how simple it is? All of it's so very...
Massey the Massive. An absolute legend of my series. An Olog that despises me with every moral of his being. He only ever joins my side out of pure fear. He may be a legend, but he is very, very weak, so it shouldn't take long to scare him off. With the final point taken, it was now a final fight with all the rest of the orcs that hadn't fled. All of them coming together in the front courtyard to fight it out with my Avengers. They wouldn't last long.
We're not done with you. You're going to look like overcooked Galadriel.
Ooh, Runny Bowels talks a big game for someone who's about to be shot in the head until they're dead. This shouldn't take too long. Arrow after arrow going into his noggin. And there we go. Runny Bowels is no more, as his disgusting smelly corpse clatters down the stairs and stains the snow. The painted then showed his worth and killed the Bloodhound, sliding his body across the snow. Just look at that pose. What a hero. What a hero. The Bloodhound slid over the mess that Runny Bowels had made, thus cementing his legacy as being absolutely useless. After the other orcs witnessed that, they gave up. They didn't want that same fate. Time to find out if the Unkillable's a liar. He lied. I then turned my attention to Massey the Massive. You know, I just feel sorry for Massey. He's been around for so long, he's been through so much, he's completely crazy, his mind is completely gone, he's been burned. But I'm not done with him yet. I'm recruiting him back into my army. I still have use for you, Massey the Massive. My Orc Avengers had done it. We'd taken the fort back from Bagabug. The last time I saw the Painted this happy, he was strangling puppies. It was good to see him happy again. The Hulk there, content with his victory. And the Abandoned, still focused. He knows that there's still a massive task ahead of us. And that is to take the throne room from Bagabug.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa! Whoa, whoa!
The moment we'd all been waiting for was about to happen. I had come face to face with Bagabug the Stormbringer. I quickly created some distance and summoned in my elemental frost grog. He would provide a distraction while I try and weaken Bagabug and his bodyguard, the Pure. But this did not go to plan. Bagabug immediately killed the grog. I had to create some distance and get some health, as well as getting an ally on my side. A savage will do for now. Bagabug was relentless, along with the Pure Blood's fire attacks, and all of this cursed energy constantly coming at me through the vents in the floor. Bagabug had truly turned this throne room into a fortress. He was relentless, charging at me, not giving me any time. He was enraged constantly. At least the Pure Blood was catching fire, but Bagabug was on the prowl. Look at him there, charging at me. I only narrowly avoided him. I knew that the key to beating Bagabug was to turn his own bodyguard against him, so I got to work on the Pure Blood, while using the explosive attack to try and clear out some of the grunts, as well as my Elven Light. Eventually, through a combination of these attacks, I was able to weaken down the Pure Blood. I created some distance and tried to dominate the Pure Blood, but a random grunt got in the way, and while I was dominating that grunt, I got shot by an archer. This archer tried to be a hero, but it wasn't happening today. I had bigger plans. I got some more distance by recruiting this shield bearer orc. I saw the Pure Blood running over, so I took this chance to dominate him. But then, Bagabug ran straight through him. He killed his own bodyguard, so I couldn't dominate him and turn him against him. Bagabug was relentless. The Pure Blood fell, and so did my hopes for a successful raid. I had to regroup. I took over 2 of Bagabug's archers in the throne room. I then jumped back down into the fight once I'd regained my health. But Bagabug was waiting for me. He tackled me and punched me repeatedly, smashing my face into the floor. I thought I was doomed, but then I realized my poison had gotten to him. Bagabug was being sick. His body was beginning to weaken. His one weakness was poison. Maybe I'd found my opening. I used my awesome teleporting Nightcrawler abilities to get behind him and constantly lay down more attacks, as well as my poison Elven Light. He does get poisoned, but it also enrages him and makes him crazy angry. He also started using shield counters, so I had to keep moving. All I had left that could touch him was my explosive attack. He would just counter the rest. Slowly I was wearing away at him, while being cautious that if he hits me once, I'll most likely be downed. I resurrected a handful of soldiers to distract Bagabug's minions. I then sent someone enter the room. An old friend. Or at least, a version of an old friend. Baga. He'd come to help me reclaim his old throne room and put his rebellious cousin in line. I don't know which universe this Baga came from, but I was glad he was here. Together we could take on Bagabug. Baga wasn't as skilled a fighter as Bagabug, and he wasn't nearly as angry, so he was being bullied around, but Bagabug was also weak from fighting for so long, and Baga knew this. Baga waited for Bagabug to be exhausted. He snuck up behind him and picked him up. Using his classic finisher move, he brought Bagabug to the ground. This weakened Bagabug and startled him. He did not know what was going on. He could not comprehend what was happening. Myself and Baga threw shot after shot at him. And eventually, our chance came. Bagabug charged at me up the steps, and I narrowly avoided it. And right as I was teleporting through him, Baga struck him from behind. I then plunged my sword directly into his chest. He fell to the floor in agony.
Bagabug, fight!
It was at this moment when I had a decision. Do I let him live? Do I shame him? Do I let him rejoin my ranks? The answer was no. He's far too dangerous to be left alive.
Bagabug, no!
Baga watched as I beheaded his cousin. I don't know how this made him feel, but I hope he knows it was completely necessary. Bagabug had to be put down. He was far too dangerous to be left alive. He was an orc so powerful that he could always challenge my reign. I could not have this, and I had to let the rest of Middle-earth know what had happened here. So that's exactly what I did.
This is not over.
The games made by the Lord of Mordor are are small and fleeting. We are the power immortal, and we are forever!
With Bagabug defeated and my territory reclaimed, we had to rebuild the fort. I could think of no better orc to lead my fort than the Abandoned. With my war chiefs promoted, I looked forward to a new era of peace in Seargost. But the peace did not last long. Moments after beheading Baga, I felt a surge through my body. This feeling led me to the lava map and deep into the volcano. I couldn't believe my eyes as a huge entity made its way out of the portal. And though I did not recognize this entity, it did seem familiar. I had no idea what he was prattling on about. He attacked me. Why would he be screaming no more at me? We fought, and he ended up hitting me with a few blows due to my confusion. Where did this huge Olog come from? And how did he get Bagabug's helmet? Could he have taken it from Bagabug's beheaded corpse? No, there wasn't enough time for that. As I hit the floor with my fire blast, I pondered where this beast had come from, and what was his motive. Clearly he wanted to kill me, and clearly he was in a lot of distress. But why? Underestimating my foe again, I didn't realize the fire blast would enrage him, ultimately making him stronger and more ferocious. He landed a massive blow on me, and in this frenzied panic, he got the killing blow.
Striking me, not one of better ideas.
After this monster killed me, he took his place in my lands. As soon as I respawned, I was ambushed again by another orc I didn't recognize. This time by a twisted, disgusting machine orc. I immediately killed his mount and rendered him defenseless. I decided to dominate him to get some answers.
I dominate you.
I glimpsed into this orc's past and discovered that he was one of Baga the Alchemist's disgusting creation. Baga often spoke about the orcs that he would give his elixirs and tonics to, turning them from lazy globs into killing machines, and this was one of his monstrous experiments. He informed me that the monster that attacked me in the lava pit was actually a different variant of Bagabug himself. Ever since my Bagabug's death, portals had begun opening up across the multiverse, and this unlucky Olog Bagabug had been pulled out of his reality right at the second he was engaging his universe's version of Talion. Confused and angry, he ultimately attacked me and defeated me. This all sounded crazy to Talion. He was naturally untrusting of orcs, especially ones like this that had been twisted by science. He shamed and cast out this orc. He didn't want to listen to their tricks. Even though Talion didn't trust that machine orc, he could still feel a disturbance in the area. He jumped down to investigate. There he was ambushed.
And I'm not that stupid!
This variant, just like the last, must have travelled to my universe right at the second that he was being attacked by his universe's ring bearer. This lesser version of my arch nemesis, Bagabug. I delivered arrows to his head before sinking my blade into his shoulder. From that moment on, I knew I had to fight. He became enraged from taking so much damage. His last stand trait kicked in. There was nothing he could do. A few kicks and a slice to the gut, and he was ready to be put out of his misery. 2 throwing knives to the chest finished him off, and his body clattered to the ground, covered in poison. After the attack, I gathered my thoughts. I realized this freakish orc machine that Baga had created years ago may have been telling the truth. I tracked him down to this cave system.
Say what you like, but I know the truth. You try to keep violence at arm's length, then blame me for letting it in my heart.
He's completely right. He knew the truth, and I didn't trust him. Now I was gonna have to win back his respect and his loyalty through fighting him. I fought him and his henchman Hoglik, the Man-Breaker, but luckily I am not a man anymore.
This is kill and repeat for you. Fine, I'm up for it. Enough!
Eventually I was able to weaken Ishmash down, enough to dominate him. I was unable to get him back on my side. I could sense danger coming, and I knew I would need his help.
Not your service, you're chosen!
After that I quickly took care of the Man-Breaker.
Let's look over your shoulder from now on. I was gonna haunt you like a shadow.
I blinked, and before I knew it I was set upon by another variant of Bagabug. This one, covered in the blood of his enemies. He didn't say much, but I knew he was a savage. Ishmael, wanting to prove his newfound loyalty to me, charged in with his flaming weapons, and hit the betrayed in the back, setting him ablaze. This didn't seem to faze him though, as he quickly put himself out and continued to hit me with his spear and shield. This variant of Bagabug wasn't messing around. He was definitely more powerful than the previous ones I'd experienced. He struck me down. But before he could deliver the final blow, Ishmael intervened. I remembered back to defeating Bagabug, and I used that same sword technique to get the finishing blow on this variant. But the fight wasn't over yet. This variant truly was powerful. Even with Ishmael, I was still struggling. He smashed me with his shield and went in for the killing blow. No chance. This variant was clearly very similar to Bagabug's strength level. His maniacal laugh echoing what was to come to my kingdom. I resurrected myself at the fort in the lava region. Immediately I could sense another variant nearby. In the pits is where I found them.
Defeated! I was defeated!
A variant of Baga was going up against a variant of Bagabug. Bloodstorm charged forward, seemingly completely through Baga's attack. He picked him up and chokeslammed him onto the floor. But Baga wasn't one to give up. He didn't take kindly to being chokeslammed. Slashing this variant on the foot and the eyes, Baga went to work, using his patented triple attack. The Bloodstorm variant of Bagabug didn't stand a chance. I went down to speak to Baga about what was going on, and how we could put an end to it, and protect our kingdom. Suddenly a flash of light hit the both of us. Another variant had teleported in, this one identical to my Bagabug. But would he be at the same power level? He charged forward, but Baga the Alchemist was already warmed up, hoisting Bagabug above his head, and slamming him to the floor. But this only enraged this Bagabug variant. Some of my allied grunts came to the pit fight, but they only got in the way. Bagabug charged, took me down, and almost killed me right there and then. But I was able to counter. I tried to pin his feet so we could take this Bagabug hostage, but his shield blocked it. Then in a flash, I was down again. I reached for Baga the Alchemist, screaming for him to run. which allowed Bagabug to deal his final blow, throwing a spear directly into my heart. I resurrected myself a few hours later and peered down from the tower. I could sense what was happening.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa! I was defeated!
Baga, enraged by my death, had gathered forces to take on Bagabug and hunt him down. But he wasn't alone. Ishmaels had followed him there.
Defeated!
Clearly I was resurrected to this tower for a reason. As I ran in, Bagabug immediately became enraged. I was terrified by how this fight would go for Baga. Due to Bagabug's sheer aggression, he'd already downed Baga the Alchemist. Even though I was extremely weak from being resurrected so recently, I had to get Baga the Alchemist up, transferring to him the last of my strength. I barely had enough to block this attack.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa, whoa!
Baga and Ishmaels knew it was up to them, with Ishmaels leaping through the air and jumping onto Bagabug. Baga then performed his signature move on Bagabug, hoisting him above the air before crashing his body to the ground. The two of them were amazing together, eventually weakening Bagabug enough that I could get in there and shame him. I couldn't risk killing him. Look what happened whenever I shamed a previous Bagabug. I had to weaken him. I had to shame him down. Ishmaels was in utter shock by what I had done. He had never seen an orc be shamed before.
As much as the next door. Probably more. Definitely more. But there's a time and a place. You've forgotten that for the last time.
Baga couldn't let this stand, slicing him from behind while he charged at me. Maybe my methods are too brutal for orcs. Baga's face gleaming with rage as he executed this orc. Clearly my methods aren't too brutal for Baga. We soon tracked down the disgraced Bagabug. He hadn't gone far.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Some of my most powerful orcs had hunted Bagabug down. The Scorpion, a particularly vicious orc, along with the Destroyer, and Skoon the Bitter. All three of them very powerful orcs.
Nobody lets up until every one of those globs stops twitching.
As we rushed in, Bagabug pleaded with the other orcs. I do not know exactly what he said, but what I can ascertain is that he was trying to turn them against me. I quickly engaged Bagabug using my fire attack, but it only enraged him. Amongst the chaos, I moved in behind Bagabug, but the Scorpion blocked my attack.
Well then, alright then.
I lunged back at the powerful Scorpion, terrified of what he might do, but the Destroyer got in my way. Bagabug's speech had gotten through to them, motivating them to betray me and join him. It was getting tough to keep up my defense against four of the most powerful orcs in Middle-earth.
You gonna come back once I kill you? Gotta see how it feels to have me split your skull open again? Huh? Are you?
The Scorpion was persistent with his attacks. I was still so weak from being resurrected. I couldn't take much more of this, barely mustering the strength to dodge his final blows. But finally, sweet release. My death had come at the hands of Bagabug, getting his revenge on me for shaming him, as well as recruiting these four powerful orcs: the Bitter, the Destroyer, and most importantly, the Scorpion. Talion, having reached his regenerative limit, sent out a call to aid for other ring bearers to join his fight. This call went out to all the multiverses where these orcs came from. Baranor was the first to answer the call. A skilled warrior, and in possession of the fire ring, Baranor would be a true opponent to all of these orcs, and he had a score to settle with the Bitter. He had faced the Bitter before, back in his homeland, This near-death experience prompted Baranor to fully embrace the power of his ring, thus starting the slow corruption of his brain, like Talion. A slow descent into madness, but Baranor was still sane enough to know what he needed to do. He hunted down and confronted the bitter.
The poison on this thing is dripping on me hands and making them numb. But it'll be worth it if it helps me end your life.
He immediately got to work using his explosive and fire attacks. But Skoon the Bitter had an ace up his sleeve, his epic grog call. Baranor sunk arrow after arrow into the beast's skull. Before taming the beast using the power of his ring. Skoon the Bitter had used this diversion as a chance for him to escape. Baranor wouldn't give up too easy. Mounting the beast, he chased down Skoon the Bitter. But he was ambushed. One of Bagabug's variants, Shagflak the Betrayed. Baranor quickly went to work using his fire abilities. Shagflak, being crazy as ever, didn't see Baranor as being a true threat. But he was soon proven wrong. Explosive strike after explosive strike, Shagflak felt himself crumbling. Shagflak just didn't have an answer for these explosive attacks. He'd never seen attacks like this before. Once weak enough, Baranor had no issue disposing of this orc. Into the pit he goes. Once he was taken care of, Baranor continued to track down the bitter, stopping only to regenerate his health by sucking the life force out of this orc. He tracked him down to this lava cave. He had found the bitter.
You! I was supposed to get over my shame! But now you're back! They'll mock me even more!
The bitter trying to get under his skin by bringing up their past. This only enraged Baranor and spurred him on. He was showing absolutely no mercy to the bitter. Baranor watched as the bitter burned, and he enjoyed it. He loved watching him in agony. What the bitter did to Baranor all those years ago left him numb. But watching the bitter burn, Baranor couldn't help but feel joy for the first time in a long time.
Finish me! I can't stand the shame! End it!
Baranor obliged. He took the bitter's hand before cleaving him straight in half. He had gotten his revenge. He had done what he came here to do. Unsure of what he should do next, the Baranor left the cave system in search of Talion. Across the map, another one of Talion's allies was answering his call. Galadriel, in possession of one of the elven rings of power. Galadriel hunted and tracked down one of the strongest members that came through the portal. Urbenu, also known as Big Bagabug. She used her light elven feet to sneak around the back of Urbenu and land a brutal stealth attack. Unlike Bagabug, this variant did take damage from stealth attacks. His grunts were an utter shock.
Once I served you, I outsmarted you. I betrayed you. Now I kill you.
Urbenu was once Galadriel's right-hand orc, before he betrayed her, killed her, and fled her universe. But she does not forgive, and she does not forget. With the way that Urbenu fights and his skill set, he was easily able to defeat Talion. But Galadriel is a completely different beast. His only chance would be to become enraged. Much lighter and faster, Galadriel is able to zip around, landing deadly blows. Eventually being able to weaken Urbenu down. Landing blow after blow, he realized that his time was near. The only chance he had was to go fully enraged, but Galadriel was too fast and too deadly. Sensing he was weak enough, she took out her bow and landed 2 arrows directly to his skull, finishing off the monster Bagabug. His huge body clattering to the floor, echoing around the area. With this kill, Galadriel sensed a disturbance in the local area, almost as if the world was being torn apart. Soon after she got this sense, she was ambushed.
My blood brother died at your hands. If you're lucky, I'll kill you quick. But I don't get the feeling you...
Moog the driver, Big Bagabug's blood brother. His presence, however, felt completely unnatural. Galadriel felt she had to dispatch him quickly. And that's exactly what she did, tossing his glitchy corpse over the edge for the rest of the area to see. Galadriel had arrived, and she wanted her presence to be known. At the same time as this, Baranor resurrected across the map. He also could sense a disturbance. He could sense something that wasn't meant to be here. Something that was causing ripples in the reality. He investigated to find an insanely similar version of Bagabug from a different reality. This one, though, the same as a Moog, was causing glitches. He clearly wasn't stable and shouldn't remain in this land for very long.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa!
Baranor knew what he had to do, but before he could attack,
You couldn't possibly be doing what I think you're doing. Are you running away? Oh, the lads will never believe it.
the Scorpion had come to the aid of his new master, Bagabug. Baranor tried his best using his advanced fire powers against these two. It didn't work. They were both immune to fire completely. He knew he couldn't beat them like this. He had to recuperate. He had to do a tactical retreat to get his thoughts together and try and come up with a game plan. But just then he noticed the two of them were completely enraged, blinded by it, attacking each other. This was his time to strike. If they weakened each other, he could quickly take one out.
This is all too much bother. You'll pay next time.
And that's exactly what happened. The Scorpion crumbling under Bagabug's immense strength. He ran. Baranor chased. He couldn't let this opportunity go. He had to take out at least one of them. They were too powerful together. Baranor switched to poison attacks, and through this he was able to weaken the Scorpion enough to throw him off the edge, down into the deep fiery pits. The same pit that Urbenu came out of. Baranor was drawn to the energy of this area. He knew something was down here, something evil, something that was causing all of this chaos, all of these problems. He stared deeply into the lava, and what he saw shocked him to his core. He saw glimpses and visions of an evil fortress ruled only by Bagabugs, and at the head, in charge, was the original Bagabug the Stormbringer, unshamed. This Bagabug did not say woo-woo, instead he spoke. He was in charge of this evil, dark, cursed fortress, along with many, many, many other Bagabugs, all at the height of their powers. Baranor knew this evil fort had to be taken out. It was the only way to stop what was happening to Middle-earth. But what army could possibly take out an entire fortress of Bagabugs? Bagabug has only grown stronger since the start of the rebellion. News of the recent discovery of the Bagabug stronghold had spread across Talion's universe. This made his orcs uneasy, to say the least. Some orcs fled the land in fear. Others were enraged. The Painted, one of Talion's oldest and most loyal orcs, approached him. The attacks caused by the various Bagabug variants in his territory had angered him. He demanded Talion mount an assault immediately on this fort. Talion expressed that patience would be the best option right now. When the Painted drew his weapon and angrily yelled at Talion to attack now, Talion threw him to the door. The Painted fled the Sirgos fort in a rage and ran straight into a portal. He wanted to end this rebellion himself, right here, right now. He gathered his 4 strongest elite Olog purple soldiers. These were Ologs who'd had their skin permanently dyed purple by none other than Bagabug the Alchemist. All 5 of them emerged from the portal, ready to fight. This was the headquarters of the Bagabug Rebellion, home to the strongest of the Bagabug variants. Talion sensed a rift opening up in his world, but it wasn't coming in, it was going out. He decided to follow it. As soon as he arrived, he realized where he was, and his instincts kicked in. He immediately took out the siege beasts. The Painted's army washed over the fort like a purple wave. Talion glanced down from above at the first wave of defenders. This first wave consisted of a warbringer, a very powerful painted orc named Ronk, and of course, Bagabug the Stormbringer.
Let's fight! Right now!
Talion swooped in to try and take the first point. He wanted to help the painted orcs as much as possible. And then that was when the Painted broke down the front gate. Purple orcs flooded in. Talion targeted the Drake. He didn't want its fire to cause havoc on the undead Painted soldiers. These powerful Ologs were created by none other than Bagabug the Alchemist. They were stronger, but still very weak to fire. Face to face with the Warbringer startled Talion. He dodged through him, unleashed an explosive attack, and then, as he dodged, he was hit by Bagabug and the Warbringer simultaneously, dropping him to his knees. Ronk then moved in to finish off the attack with a spear, but Talion cut it in half. Fighting for his life and in a sheer panic, Talion took the first point. Moving on to the second point, things were looking dire. Many of the purple Ologs were down, and all that we'd achieved is that there were now 2 times as many powerful orcs, including 2 Bagabugs. The sheer number of powerful Bagabug variants startled Talion. Just look at how many there are, and look at how strong they are. The Painted's purple Ologs didn't stand a chance, and neither did Talion. As he dashed in, he was simultaneously struck by 2 Bagabug spears at the same time. But he was able to counter at the last moment. Why was he still fighting, he thought to himself. And then the first death came. Aslar the Painless. As he died, the purple seeped out of his body, and his face became blurred and distorted. And then, tragedy struck. The Painted was cut down by the Bagabug Warbringer variant. Talion was in utter shock. Concussive bombs went off, leading to Ronk the Painted tackling him and punching him in the back of the head. Ronk moved in for the killing blow, but Talion, amazed by his resilience, was able to counter. Talion, now scrambling for his life, was using his explosive attack to try and create some distance. But one of the bigger Bagabug variants, the Olog, grabbed him. He proceeded to punch him across the battlefield and then threw a hammer at his head. Talion cut it in twain. He wasn't going to go down this easy, but he was tired.
Yet to win the battle or the war. This is where your petty foray ends.
The Bloodstorm's words rang true. Talion tried to get out of there, but it was too late. The final blow came from Bagabug himself. Talion blacked out. When he finally came to, he was back in his own universe. He cursed the name of Bagabug. But surely they must have a weakness. Surely there's an army he can assemble that would be able to take them on and destroy that fortress once and for all. He summoned in his top advisor, but wait.
Is this who you were calling for? He's a bit busy.
The Painted, barely clinging on to life, was delivered back to Talion, along with one of Bagabug's assassins. They were clearly trying to take out Talion while he was weak, but he didn't hesitate, putting arrows into the assassin's forehead before slicing his stomach and then his shoulder. To heal the downed Painted, Talion channeled some of his own life force into him. Clearly the Painted still had some fight left in him. The painted then left to gather what remains of his forces. But Talion couldn't rest. He'd heard word of a spy in close proximity to his fortress. He decided to investigate. He needed some answers. And this is where he found the spy, hiding in plain sight amongst his troops. The evil crown does kind of give it away. Talion knew that this orc was no match for him, and that he could defeat him in an instant. But he didn't want to kill him. He needed answers. He needed information about Bagabug's homeworld and his fort. So Talion was just toying with this orc, hitting him with explosive barrages and poison bombs, until he would finally succumb to Talion's questions. He could see the poison getting to him, so he kept the onslaught up. But his patience was wearing thin. Talion eventually grabbed the spy orc and started stabbing him repeatedly in the back. "Tell me their weakness," he screamed at the orc. Talion peered into the broken orc's mind. He saw what looked to be memories of an evil throne room, and a voice he did not recognize.
So you have come, Talion. What a pathetic attack on the fort. What makes you think you could succeed where so many others have failed? Go, my brothers. Destroy these sheep. These filthy followers.
Talion felt the connection sever. Amongst this orc's grunting, the only words he could make out were, "They have no weakness." This angered Talion to no end, and he tossed the dungeon breaker off the cliff. The orc fell to a very, very dignified end. He was in panic mode now. He knew he needed to recruit troops. He needed a strong army, but what army could take on Bagabug? He decided the only option would be to reach across the multiverse to the other dimensions, to his other selves. The first to answer the call was none other than Circa, Baranors' brother. In this universe, Circa came across Talion's ring when he traveled to Mordor. When he turned up to sell his mercenaries, he figured out that Sauron was the buyer. He had arrived right when Celebrimborn was fighting him. When the ring was cut and thrown to the ground, Circa rushed over and claimed it for his own. Ever since that day, he's been using the powers of the ring to fight the orcs of Middle-earth. This version of the ring bearer was insanely powerful. He'd utilized the Mask of the Undying to take control of the undead. He'd been able to use the powers of this mask to conquer the orcs of Liflad, also known as the Desert Region. Surely he would have a strong orc to rival the Bagabug fortress. The first orc that came to Circa's mind was this very old pit fight champion who had recently been killed, Pash the Merciless, a truly ferocious orc. He was so strong and verified in fact that he's the only recorded orc to have ever beaten Bagabug the Stormbringer in the pits. And it's about time he woke up and joined this fight. But Circa wasn't satisfied with this. He wanted to make sure this orc was as strong as they said. He had to make sure that the revival process hadn't weakened this orc one bit. Circa sent the newly revived orc on a simple raid mission against one of the invading Bagabug variants, Grom the raid leader.
No one gets through here unless I get a chance to play with them first.
Pash the Merciless charged in, keen to prove himself. Circa had also sent an old familiar face, an undead Bagabug the Stormbringer that he was able to bring back to life with the powers of his undying mask.
It's as if half of Mordor wants what we've got. And you know what else we've got? Lots of pain to kill.
Because this orc was a lesser variant of Bagabug, they were able to quickly dispatch him. The combined powers of Pash the Merciless, the undead Stormbringer, and Circa the undying mask wielder, Grom the Killer soon fell. This version of Circa, this version of the Ringbearer, they were truly powerful. They had their right-hand man, an undead Bagabug, and he had an equally strong orc in Pash the Merciless. But unlike Bagabug the Stormbringer, he was able to use necromancy as well. A power like this can only be imbued into an orc by the wearer of the Undying Mask. This orc would surely help Talion in defeating the Bagabug fort, but Circa wasn't satisfied with this test. He needed to see if Pash the Merciless could still take on a fully fledged Stormbringer, so he quickly sent an invite to one that had just arrived in his lands. He challenged them to a pit fight.
Woo, woo, woo! Woo! Woo!
Clearly being resurrected had impacted his brain, but had it impacted his strength? He charged in and immediately smashed Bagabug in the face with his shield, causing him to become enraged by the injury. He then proceeded to try and get an advantage using his necromancy powers, bringing orcs back to life right in front of the Stormbringer's face. Would these orcs provide a difference in the fight? Probably not. Whenever a normal orc attacks Bagabug, it's basically like little tickles to his skin. Nothing happens. But this should be more than a tickle. Pash tackles Bagabug and proceeds to punch him in his face. He continues to use his necromancy powers to bring orcs back to life. You can see now that Bagabug is completely surrounded by undead soldiers. This, combined with persistent attacks, eventually led to Bagabug's death and Pash's rise. I can't express how rare this sight is. First, Pash, whenever he was alive, beat Bagabug in a pit fight tournament, and now he's killing him in open play in an ambush mission. That is huge. This orc may single-handedly turn the tide and help us take Bagabug's fortress. The next ring bearer to answer the call was Eltariel, the blade of Galadriel. In this reality, she was able to escape the fight with Sauron after Celebrimbor was absorbed by him. She put on the Nazgul ring and was determined to hold Mordor for as long as possible. She refused to return to Galadriel until she had something to show for her work. But slowly, the ring was corrupting her, turning her into a Nazgul, giving her amazing powers at the same time, but still corrupting her mind. Luckily though, she was still sane enough to agree to send Talion an orc.
Flaying your victims. Good idea, but think about where you start. I recommend tender places.
And the orc she had in mind was a real legend. His chattering teeth were legendary across Middle-earth. Zune the Scholar didn't stand a chance, especially because the maniac hates education. He despises reading. He doesn't believe that orcs and Ologs should be literate, and he's made it his life's goal to wipe out any orcs that say otherwise. This irrational hatred has led to unreasonable strength, as he easily flings the Scholar across the battlefield.
This is struck! We will meet again, and I will have my revenge.
This orc thinks he can retreat. Absolutely not. The battle must continue. The maniac must get his kill. He must satiate his rage. With the battle finished and Zune's corpse lying still on the floor, she approached the maniac. She dominated his broken mind and informed him a fight was coming. Maniac agreed, as long as he could bash some nerds. The next ring bearer Talion called upon lived in the depths of Minas Morgul. His name was Celebrimbor. In this reality, he had survived and was the sole user of his ring, fighting the forces of Mordor, trying to maintain control over Minas Morgul. Although this was proving difficult, as his lands had recently been invaded by an army of tower orcs. One in particular, though, he believed that if he was able to dominate, would serve Talion very well. Brimbor set off into the city to track down this venomous orc.
Maggot!
I love a good pursuit. Makes the heart pound. Who's with me?
Oh no! Someone big and scary is after me!
Booble the Venomous, a particularly strong tower variant, and he was laying a trap for an unsuspecting orc. There he had his best men waiting to ambush this poor sod, his Black Legion bodyguards. Celebrimbor jumped in, executed one, and moved in to begin weakening the tower's resolve.
I'll stop your heart. So, he returns from the grave. Well, I'll put him back in. Let's get him!
Celebrimbor was insulted by the steady even glancing in his direction. He put arrow after arrow into the steady's skull, until he was weak enough for the venomous to finish him off the most brutal way known to orc. Brimbor could only watch as the steady's body began to decompose. The venomous had forced a lethal dose of one of his tonics down his throat. His body dissolved right there and then. This was all that remained. Truly, that is the most brutal way for an orc to die. Apart from being thrown off a small ledge, truly nothing is more insulting than that. Eventually, Celebrimbor was able to weaken this tower variant's resolve. He then shamed him down. He needed to make sure the venomous wouldn't turn on him. He needed to make sure he'd be loyal. He then set off into the city to track down the recently shamed orc, only to stumble upon many other tower variants. The city truly was overrun.
Didn't you learn your lesson the last time I killed you?
Brimbor didn't have time for this. He knew Talion needed the orc right away, but there was no escaping the infestation of tower orcs in this city.
You should know by now that I'll always be 2, just 3 steps ahead of you!
He was now stuck right between two very powerful tower variants. He used his explosive attack to try and create some distance between the two orcs before plunging his blade directly into the tactician. He then revealed his trump card, his signature move, summoning Gondorian spirits to fight for him. Because of his many years of experience, he was able to hone this skill by meditating within the crypts underneath the city. Thanks to these Gondorians, he was able to turn the tide of battle and throw the tactician off a small ledge. Maybe this is the worst death. I can't decide. Let me know in the comments which is a worse death. Being thrown off a small ledge or being force-fed poison and turning into goo. Brimbor then shamed the remaining orc. He hoped that this shaming would send a message to the other parasitic towers that had taken over the city. But like I said, this city is truly infested. He didn't need to go far before he came face to face with another tower variant.
Listen to me! Listen to me!
Brimbor didn't have time for this, and he was still weak from the other fight. He dashed past this enemy before coming face to face with the venomous. He got to work weakening his resolve. You can see that the venomous amassed quite a force, but they were no match for his elven magic.
You intrigue me. How is this possible? Raining? Killing you is fun.
This only enraged Celebrimbor. He was insulted by the very notion that an orc thought they could defeat him. He unleashed his most powerful weapon upon the orc. This combined with his over 2,000 years of combat experience, and the orc soon fell. He dominated him, and instructed him that he must fight for Talion, and rid the world of all Bagabugs. I'll be honest guys, I'm just gonna let this next clip play out. I tried to do a cool pose for Celebrimbor, and then this random drunken orc just stumbles his way over, ruins my cool pose, just walks up beside me, doesn't attack me, just stands there, clearly completely drunk. Look at the way he's moving, stumbling around, and then he has the audacity to pee right in front of Celebrimbor. I can only imagine what he would do. Just look at the expression on this orc's face. He is very happy. With this dirty business taken care of, Brimbor returned to retaking the city. Talion then called out into another universe, and his own voice answered. This version of Talion, however, did not see the threat of Bagabug. He had not experienced this attack yet. He didn't believe in the true threat, and thus he was not going to send Talion any help. He sensed a commotion at the pitfight arena and decided to investigate.
Now let's see if you can get past me. on now, I can do this all day.
There he found one of his kingdom's greatest orcs and top alchemists, squaring off against an unknown orc. This was his universe's version of Baga. A Moog immediately charged forward and tackled the Bagabug variant. He was truly ready for a fight. But sheer rage took over the variant as he hit a Moog with his shield and then spun him over his head with his spear, smashing his body into the ground. A Moog relied massively on his throwing axes, but the variant was able to block it with his shield. Throwing a poison bomb down, he then went in for the killing blow. The Bagabug variant cut the Alchemist's head clean off, right in front of Talion. His hands trembled with rage as he drew his sword. He jumped into the arena and proceeded to attack this so-called Bagabug variant. He became consumed with rage as he laid blow after blow into this variant, but he could feel the strength of Bagabug coursing through this orc. He decided to call in his most capable soldier, Scoff the Life Drinker, this universe's strongest orc. A sick, twisted creation of a Moog the Alchemist, splicing Tower Orc and Machine Orc DNA together, creating this killing machine. Drinker then proceeded to hit the Bagabug variant with his own move, shattering his back as his body clattered to the ground. This kill only made the Life Drinker stronger. With every soul he takes, he grows in strength. The Talion variant, now wary of the Bagabug threat, sent the Life Drinker to help in the fight.
Until next time.
The final ring bearer to answer Talion's call was a variant of Baranor. In this universe, Baranor had found himself at the Black Gate. He inherited the ring from Celebrimbor, and with it, he gained immense powers. Baranor travelled to the deepest depths of his region. Here at the hottest point, he would find his soldier. The legendary Pickle Olog. A truly fearsome Olog created by alchemy experiments. He's completely immune to poison and all diseases. If Nurgle existed in Middle-earth, this would be him. Baranor informed the Pickle of the coming fight, and he was happy to oblige. But as Baranor was closing the portal, he sensed something.
Whoa! 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 Whoa, whoa! Whoa!
The Bagabug the Stormbringer variant from this universe was activated. Up until this moment, he was a loyal servant to Baranor. The attack across all of the multiverses had already begun. Had Talion waited too long? Baranor quickly engaged in combat using his acrobatics, getting behind Bagabug and attacking him in the back. But he was quick to counter, blocking the blade and then bashing Baranor with his shield. He tried to use his bow and arrow, but the arrows seemed to have no effect on this beast. More countered attacks and Bagabug was gaining strength. Baranor dashed to one side and tried to activate his explosive blade. But again, it had no effect on this Omega level orc. With Baranor now completely out of options, Bagabug struck, plunging his cursed blade deep within Baranor and hoisting him up. He could see the hatred in Bagabug's eyes.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Talion recoiled at the sight of Baranor being executed. He had to gather himself quickly. He could sense an invader in his lands, and that's when he was ambushed.
I hope you enjoyed that little game, because you just lost!
This huge, hulking version of Bagabug had made his way into Talion's realm. Despite its large size, you can see just how fast it is, and strong. Any one of those blows could end Talion's life in an instant.
Worse ways to die.
But Talion had a trick up his sleeve. Using his horned Nazgul mask, he was able to summon in an elemental Graug. The Bagabug Olog was then hit with a barrage of frost and ice boulders, an attack of which he had no immunity to, and no counter for. With this hulking Bagabug significantly weakened, Talion moved in for the killing blow. With the Olog dead, the Graug retreated into the mountains. As Talion walked across the frozen Balrog, he knew it was time. Time to end it all. Time to unleash his new powerful army on this Bagabug fortress. But it wasn't just a new army he'd be going in with. The Ringbearer variants had also gifted him various different rare armor sets. Talion assembled his forces. Naruk the Painted, the Maniac, the Merciless, the Venomous, the Life Drinker, and the Rot Beast. With these 6 legendary soldiers assembled, it was time. Finally, it was time to face these Bagabugs in their own fortress, with a real army. Not a gang of undead purple logs, a real army. Wait, where's everyone going? To stop more orcs from fleeing, Talion took care of the siege beasts. He also destroyed the Drake flamethrower. After doing this, he jumped into the fight to take on the first Bagabug. He lunged at his shield before dashing behind him and freezing him solid, hitting him with a huge combo before cracking the ice.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa! Whoa, whoa!
The first of many woo-woos to be heard ringing across this fort. But that wasn't the only strong orc at this first point. Talion dived in between the 3 strong orcs, but he was caught off guard. Luckily, due to his new gifted chestplate, he was able to sustain that blow. With no damage being dealt to Bagabug, Talion unleashed his secret weapon, his gifted power from Celebrimbor. He was able to infuse this power into a Nazgul helmet. These Gondorian spirits would surely turn the tide, or at very least act as a distraction. Chaos broke loose as Talion's 6 strong orcs entered the fort. But just as quickly as they entered, casualties started cropping up. The Maniac had already been cut down by these Omega level orcs guarding the front gate. Bagabug charged at Talion as he was attempting to get the Maniac up. By some miracle, he was able to sustain it. And then finally, Pash the Merciless moved in, crushing the head of the Warbringer. But as you can see, even killing one of these Omega level orcs came at a huge cost. 4 of Talion's army were injured in the process. If we were going to do this, Talion needed to be on point. Thanks to the efforts of Pash the Merciless keeping those 2 orcs busy, Talion was able to get the rest of his forces up. And then Naruk the Painted smashed through the front gate. And then something happened that I did not expect. Across the map there was clearly infighting occurring between the Bagabug variants, as Shagflak Bloodstorm was cut down by Bagabug the Stormbringer.
When I take you apart, there'll be so much gore it'll make the eye of Sauron blink!
Ronk the Painted, a disgraced member of the Painted Party who fled to join the Bagabug Rebellion. Out of all the orcs in Middle-earth, Naruk the Painted hated this one the most. We had finally started making progress. Talion unleashed a huge elven light poison blast that consumed Bagabug. Poison is the only element in Middle-earth that will actually do damage to a Bagabug. With the front gates Bagabug down, their team soon crumbled. The undead Pash the Merciless cutting down Ronk the Painted. Early on in the raid, Talion could tell just how important Pash the Merciless is going to be. With the first point taken, Talion's forces moved on to the second point. While this was happening, he took it upon himself to take out the remaining siege beasts. While returning to the fight, more of Bagabug's forces fell. Talion could see just how strong his troops were getting. They were growing in confidence, and they were slaying orcs left, right, and center. The Life Drinker absorbing the power from this Bagabug. With this point's forces now slaughtered, Talion could easily capture it. As we approached the third point, Talion glimpsed ahead to see what orcs we were going to encounter. The Unashamed Orc. A powerful orc until he was once shamed by Talion. He then joined the Bagabug Rebellion out of pure spite. He now wears the markings of shame with pride, and vows to end the life of all Talions across the multiverse. Kuga the Bitter. A once proud member of Baga's bandits, this variant had fallen into ruin and resented Talion, and all of the Ringbearer. And of course, a third Bagabug the Stormbringer. Talion entered the fight and immediately chaos broke out. He used his explosive attacks to try and hit multiple orcs at once. The maniac immediately fell. He was able to summon in more Gondorian wraiths to act as a diversion. Pash the Merciless then got to work, using his dark necromancy powers to resurrect as many orcs as possible. Talion used this distraction to land a blow on Kuga.
Thought you were done with me when you saved me, did you? I surpassed your pathetic efforts to humiliate me!
Talion used the time the resurrected orcs had given him to revive his orcs. The maniac, who'd been injured a few times now, was now consumed with rage. He was done messing around. He delivered a devastating mace blow to Bagabug's head. As his mangled corpse dropped to the floor, the maniac was heard clattering his teeth.
Why me? Why me?
Talion had a hard time with this one. In his universe, Kuga was a loyal servant. He wasn't bitter. He was a member of the original Baggers Bandits. But Talion couldn't linger on this fort for long. There was still a fort to take, and an unashamed orc that needed put down. The combined might of these 6 orcs was beginning to show. With the third point now taken, they were halfway to meeting the Bagabug King. Talion, spurred on by his team's progress, dashed ahead before meeting a familiar foe. But there was no stopping this team. No matter how angry Bagabug got, the rage couldn't sustain him. The Life Drinker, seemingly powered up from his previous kill, decided to add another body to the fire. With Bagabug's inner gate garrison in shambles, we took the point. An old familiar face fled the scene, but Talion couldn't allow this. The unkillable, the original bodyguard for Bagabug. He needed to be shamed. There's no room for cowards in this Middle-earth. While Talion was taking care of that business, his forces had broken through the inner gate. Grogs were unleashed, chaos was breaking loose, and with it, the Wraith Touched was cut down. The Wraith Touched was responsible for many Talion deaths across the multiverse. So having him taken out immediately was a smart move, but as you can see, it came with a cost. The inner gate is where Bagabug's best forces were kept.
Made a mess of things. Battling atop Barad-dûr, taking back Minas Morgul. I bet you're feeling pretty good about yourself. I bet I can make that stop.
At the sheer panic of what was going on, Talion took the point. He needed to clear out these powerful orcs. He had to heal his men. The Flame of War orc was lurking, and he was truly powerful. The strongest of all the Flame of Wars. As well as him, the Laughing Shaman was still in the area, but Talion was able to dash around and get his men up. Once the majority of orcs had cleared out and gone to the final point, Talion was finally able to rid the world of this monster. Cleaving cost the Laughing Shaman in half. While he was dealing that, his elite orcs had taken the final point. Now it all came down to this. All remaining Bagabug sympathizers had collected themselves outside the throne room in a last-ditch effort to try and slay Talion. They didn't care about the other orcs, they just wanted Talion's blood. They knew that once Talion would fall, the other orcs would disperse. This final skirmish outside the throne room consisted of not 1, not 2, but 3 Bagabug the Stormbringers, all fully enraged, all insanely dangerous. This was a crazy fight. But amongst the chaos, Talion was able to pick out and execute a Baga traitor, Baga the Abused. He then went to work using his explosive machine sword against one of the Bagabug variants. Then the turning point came. Scoff the Life Drinker had killed a third Bagabug. He had become so insanely powerful that even Talion feared him. Like dominoes, the other 2 Bagabugs soon fell, the Rot Beast getting the final kill, his poison-ridden corpse clattering to the ground. Talion feared what might come of this poisoned corpse, but he couldn't worry about that right now. he had a throne room to conquer. The 6 legendary orcs that were gathered from across the multiverse rejoiced. They had done it. They had taken the fort. They saluted Talion as he walked in to finally confront this evil demon. This monster. The scourge on the multiverse. The one who had started it all. The original Bagabug the Stormbringer.
I'm surprised you made it this far. No matter. This ends now.
Talion was in awe of this talking Bagabug. He'd never heard words come out of his mouth that weren't woo-woo, and he could only speculate what bodyguards this entity had. But then the room fell silent, and a voice was heard coming out of this Bagabug.
So you have come, Talion. You know, you are the Talion that started this all. Don't you? You created the first anomaly, known as Baga the Alchemist. He never should have killed you. He never should have risen to power. It never should have happened. Your universe spawned this abomination, and he infected the multiverse. He cast shadows across many worlds. How could the Vagabugs not rebel? We've always hated him. Go, my brothers.
Talion's body fell cold. He could feel the life leaving him. He could feel his hope vanishing. But suddenly, he could feel the light of hope behind him. The abandoned, his most loyal soldier, had come to his aid in his time of need. Talion dashed in the battle, his courage restored by the emergence of the abandoned. But still the odds were against him. They were coming up against 3 very, very powerful Omega level Bagabug variants. They couldn't falter. Even one mistake could end in their deaths. Talion summoned in his grog to act as a distraction. He charged through their lines before diving off and landing a blow on one of the variants. While this was happening, the abandoned was facing down the other 2 variants alone.
Leave these towering walls. You shall meet your fate, brother. Cut down by dark serpents, and then raised up by those still dark.
Morog the Stormbringer. Talion didn't know these Bagabug variants, but he could sense just how strong they were. He could feel the cursed energy of these 3 beings flowing through the throne room. The grog was slaughtered by Bagabug, but it had served its purpose. The abandoned using for distraction to hoist this powerful orc above his head. Eventually the explosive machine sword started working. Morog was weakened. He would be the first to fall. But this only set Bagabug off into a full rage. He was incredibly dangerous right now. Talion had to keep his distance and focus on Morog first.
My death is but one step on the path you tread. A path you cannot avoid. A fate you cannot alter. Your bones!
With Morog now dead, the tables had shifted. The balance had turned in their favor.
Killing you will be the highlight of my day!
Talion then turned his sights to Felgrat. He would be the next to fall. A flurry of explosive attacks followed up by an execution that Felgrat narrowly avoided. He began to counter his attacks, but Talion was determined, using his dash ability masterfully. Getting behind him, he was able to land devastating blows before finishing it off with a poison blast. But this only enraged Bagabug. As the fight went on, cursed energy continued to flow through the throne room. It was too much for the abandoned. His body had taken a lethal dose and he was down. But luckily a firebomb that the abandoned set off caused enough distraction for Talion to be able to get him up. Once up, Talion went back to fighting these two beasts. Talion's overwhelming power, combined with the courage and the skills of the Abandoned, meant that the Bagabugs were soon overwhelmed. He mustered up all of his strength to summon in 6 Gondorian soldiers, and then Felgrant fell. The Abandoned had cut him down, a combination of many strikes, but now the fight was truly in our favor.
I am rage incarnate.
Bagabug's rage had taken over. He'd given into it. Cursed energy flowed through the throne room as he rampaged around. Despite being alone, he was still putting up a huge fight, countering Talion and the Abandoned's attacks, but they were persistent. They were determined to rid the world of this evil, and finally, the chance came.
How could this be? My rage is failing me.
What? You can't take this fortress. It can't fall to a tark like you.
Talion summoning the strength of all of the fallen orcs and ring bearers that have had their lives ruined by this variant, mustered up enough strength to cut the Lord of Evil in two. He'd won. He'd been able to cast this demon's voice from his head. And thus, the tyranny of the Bagabugs was snuffed out across the multiverse. The rebellion was over. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and this series. You know, if you like this at all, feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment down below with what you'd like to see next. Also, massive shout out to KKW for putting this awesome fort together. You can see his username right there. Go raid his fort if you want to check it out for yourself and challenge your forces. I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.